I've been having a morning and a half. I don't know what's wrong with me, but it's whatever, I guess. Just a day in a life. Have you ever had a moment where you just stop, look around, and you realize you don't fully remember how you got there? I'm not talking about being distracted or forgetting small details. I mean, something like just standing somewhere, fully conscious, fully awake, but with this overwhelming feeling of like, I missed something. Like, your life kept moving and you weren't fully there for it, you know? Hello. My name is Lily, and I have dissociative identity disorder, unfortunately. And for a long time, I had no idea. It's just, for most of my life, I genuinely believed I had narcolepsy. And I didn't just casually think that, I committed to that explanation because it made sense, at least on the surface. Every once in a while, not constantly, not dramatically, just enough times to be unsettling, I would come to somewhere. Like, I don't really know what the word is, but I feel like I would gain consciousness somewhere else. So, shut up, phone. I wanted to explain what that actually felt like. It wasn't like waking up from sleep necessarily. It was more like you suddenly realize you're present. Like, your awareness clicks into place mid-moment. I'd be standing in a grocery store, already holding items, already halfway through what I was doing, but there was this gap behind me. I couldn't remember what was up. Like, I couldn't replay how I got there. I couldn't remember the drive. Stop doing that, sir. Stop it. My cat. Sir, don't you even think about it. I couldn't remember the drive. I couldn't remember deciding to go or even leaving my house. And the reason it took me so long to question it is because it didn't happen all the time. It wasn't like an everyday thing. It wasn't even every week. But it happened just enough to plant this constant, quiet doubt in the back of my mind. I would sit there after the fact, trying to reconstruct what happened. Like, okay, logically, I must have driven there. I must have decided to come there. It must have been functioning normally, but it didn't feel like that. It felt like there was a missing piece that I just couldn't access. And then there was the one moment that really stuck with me. I was out, just existing like normal, and someone approached me. They were comfortable, familiar. They started talking to me like we had shared history. And I did what most people would do. I tried to piece it together in real time. I smiled. I responded. I tried to figure out who they were. And then they called me a different name. And it only happened once. But that moment didn't just go away because it wasn't said like a joke. It wasn't hesitation or confusion. They were confident. They believed that was who I was. Cat? He's hunting bugs. Nice tension killer. Thank you, boy. You're such a freak. Anyway, I remember walking away from that interaction, feeling this mix of confusion and discomfort that I couldn't fully explain. But instead of questioning it deeply, I pushed it into the same explanation I had already built. Narcolepsy, blackouts, something neurological, but simple. But even though I kept explaining it away, the feeling didn't go away. It actually got worse. Because now it wasn't just confusion, it was uncertainty. Like, how much of my life am I not fully aware of type thing. So eventually, I reached a point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. I didn't go in thinking something was deeply wrong. I went in thinking, I just need an explanation. I expected something manageable, something straightforward. And then I heard those damn words. Dissociative Identity Disorder. And everything just stopped. I remember feeling my brain was trying to reject it. Like, no, that does not apply to me. Because the only understanding I had of DID was extreme, exaggerated, and just nothing like how I experienced my life. And then the fear hit. Not all at once, but in like waves. What does this mean? Is my life real? Am I in control? Am I ever going to feel normal again? No, I'm not going to do that right now. And I think something that's really important to understand is what that actually looks like on a daily basis. Because when people like me hear dissociative identity disorder, they tend to picture something very extreme. Constant switching, constant chaos, constant loss of control. But that's not what my life feels like most of the time. A lot of it is actually subtle. And honestly, that's part of what makes it so confusing to live with. Most days, it doesn't feel like I'm not there. It feels like I'm slightly removed. Like there's this thin layer between me and everything around me. I can still talk to people. I can still function. I can still go about my day. But something feels fundamentally off. Like I'm not fully connected to the moment I'm in. And even internally, it's not always loud or obvious. It's more like my thoughts don't always feel completely unified. Like they're coming from slightly different angles. Not because of not enough to like immediately panic, but enough to notice if you're paying attention. And then there's memory. And I want to be very clear about this. It's not huge, dramatic memory loss every single day. It's smaller than that, but it definitely adds up in the long run. It's forgetting parts of conversations or just whole conversations, or knowing you did something but not really remember doing it. There's finding something in your room and having no memory of putting it there. Little gaps, little inconsistencies. Children. And over time, those small things start to affect you, because it's not just forgetfulness. It's the feeling of, can I trust my own mind? And when it comes to switching, it's not always like a dramatic thing either. Sometimes it's so subtle that if you don't know what's happening, you just think your mood changed. Sorry. Or like from the outside, your mood changed, or I don't know how to explain it clearly, but let me try it. Like your reactions might shift, your perspective might shift, the way you feel about something might change, and you don't always fully understand why. And that's where it gets difficult, because even if it's subtle, you can feel that lack of control. Like, you're not completely anchored to yourself, or in yourself, or whatever the correct word is. And then there's the flashbacks. And I need to explain this carefully, because they're not just memories. They feel real. Like your body is reacting to something that isn't happening anymore, but your brain hasn't caught up to that yet. And because of that, my baseline anxiety is high, to say the least. Get off of the tree, sir. It's not always visible, but it's always there. Like, my nervous system doesn't want to, like, fully relax at times. And sometimes that turns into anger, and it can feel disproportionate. Like, your reaction is stronger than the situation in front of you, and you don't fully understand where it's coming from all the time. You know, it's like, it's not quite like an on and off switch. It's more like a wave, and then you get stuck in it. And then there's how you see yourself. Because when your identity doesn't always feel consistent, it's really easy to fall into self-hatred, to feel broken, to feel like something is wrong with you. But slowly, painfully, things started making sense. The gaps in memories, the disconnection, that one moment with the different name thing. It wasn't random, it was dissociation. And I need to be very honest about what came after that. A diagnosis doesn't fix you. It gives you answers, but it also gives you reality. I still deal with flashbacks, and they're not just memories. They feel like you're reliving something. I deal with intense anxiety, social anxiety, just going out into the world, communicating, experiencing other people. Sometimes with no clear trigger, yeah, but I deal with anger. That can feel overwhelming and hard to control. And I deal with self-hatred, with thoughts of self-deleting. I'm not attempting anymore, but those thoughts don't just disappear because you decide to stop. They're something you have to actively work through. And honestly, I'm still working through it now. Like, my girl, she got me this tattoo. It's a matching tattoo, but it's also a scar cover-up. So, if you understand that feeling, you're not alone. And the hardest part is, you still have to function. You still have responsibilities. You still have to show up in your life, even when your mind doesn't feel stable. And this is why therapy matters so much. This is the part I care about the most. The therapy, not surface level support, not occasional check-ins, not just mentioning it, not just acknowledging it, but actually doing it. Actual, consistent, trauma-informed therapy. Because something I've noticed, a lot of people who talk about DID, they acknowledge therapy, but they don't really talk about it. They don't talk about how hard it is, how uncomfortable it is, how it forces you to face things your brain tried desperately to protect you from. Because healing isn't aesthetic. It's not something you can package into short, clean moments. It's messy, it's exhausting, and it's ongoing. And I am actively choosing to do that work every day, even when I don't want to, even when it hurts, especially when I don't want to and when it hurts. So when I say I was diagnosed, it's not just a label. It's something I live with every single day. So if you're dealing with dissociation or trauma or anything that makes you feel disconnected from yourself, please seek help. You don't have to figure it out alone. And I'm still learning how to live with it. Fucking, I don't even know how many years later. Just one day at a time. I used to think those moments were just random, unexplainable glitches in my life, I guess. But now I'm starting to understand they were signs. So if you made it this far, thank you. This isn't easy to talk about, but it definitely matters. If you want more honest conversations like this, you can definitely subscribe if you want. So, that is what living with DID actually looks like for me, specifically. Not anyone else, just me. Not constant chaos. Not what you actually or usually see online, but something quieter and honestly something a lot more complicated. If you related to anything I said in this video, or if you experienced anything similar, please don't try to figure it out on your own. Getting help genuinely matters. If you want more honest conversations like this, or you want me to go deeper into things like therapy, coping, or just day-to-day experiences, you can subscribe or let me know in the comments what you want to hear next. If you're struggling right now, you're not broken. You're dealing with something very real, and you don't have to deal with it alone. Not anymore. So, yeah. I hope you have a good day, night, morning, whatever. Have a good one.